There they would live and die, then return and share the experience with all the other souls. A soul that could not understand the experience could go and live that life also, to experience that life. I learned that we have many lives, past, present, and future. And I know that goes against some scripture. So you take this any way you want. I'm not trying to pull you off in any direction. These souls, our souls, cannot experience certain things like pain, sorrow, hatred, and anger. Though these are negative things, it was important for them to understand and experience them. Perhaps to understand the motivations of human beings, or, and I believe this is in my heart, he put that in parentheses, I believe this is in my heart, to eventually evolve into a being like God, all-knowing and understanding. It's part of our spiritual journey. At this time, things appeared to me, answers to other questions. I could see concepts as if they were entities. I could understand for the first time in my life E equals mc squared. I learned that our universe is one of many. It is like a petri dish, designed with its own rules to raise a specific being. It's like a petri dish, designed with its own rules to raise a specific being. In this case, to raise beings like humans. Each universe has its own specific laws of physics. I now realize that the amount of information a soul must learn is vast, more so than we can possibly imagine here. The next concept or rule I learned is that God can never be proven by scientific means. To do so would corrupt the environment. It would destroy faith. When we have faith, we seek, we learn. If God were to appear before us like a huge being at the United Nations, the entire world would believe, but also live in fear. To successfully experience the human existence, one must be physically out of touch with God. Physically out of touch with God. We have to learn and seek on our own. We need to search out the meaning of our own existence and experience it here on earth. Faith is the engine of discovery. Without faith, we are just like ants. Page is stuck. All right, now. I learned why bad things happen to good people. If nothing bad ever happened to us, we would all basically be the same. It is like metal in a forge. You have to heat it and strike it repeatedly to make a useful tool from it. We start this life with a blank piece of paper. With every incident we experience, a part of the blueprint is recorded until a complete plan for an individual is created. This blueprint dictates the end of our lives. To live happily in this realm is to become aware of the blueprint and change it. I gotta read that again. This blueprint dictates the end of our lives. To live happily in this realm to live happily in this realm is to become aware of the blueprint and change it. All right, that's what it says. I don't quite get that. Sounds like a contradiction, but maybe you got it. I didn't get it. Read it. Lastly, time is only a concept measured here. In the other realm, it does not exist. While we may experience pain and sorrow on earth, it is only a second in the grand scheme of things. We have an eternity to live, and in reality, souls never really die. Our life is just a thought providing circumstances for this existence. Our life is just a thought providing circumstances for this existence. As the soul progresses, the trauma is forgotten and put into its proper perspective as part of the learning process. One question I always personally, here it is, here it comes. Here it comes. One question I always personally had, and that was answered, is, are ghosts real? The answer I was given was yes. In the human body, there are two forms of spiritual being. One is the soul, which is a spiritual being that has a symbiotic relationship with the physical body. The second is the being created by the biology of the human body. This being is intelligent and is basically the personality of the individual. Its purpose is to provide for the human needs of food, hunger, survival, and procreation. This concept is very similar to Freud's id, ego, and superego, the division of mind and personality. The soul provides us with all the things of the individual that separates us from the animal kingdom. This is the ability to reason, to use logic, or feel awe when seeing a sunset. And we had a beautiful one here last night. I couldn't believe it yesterday. Oh my God. The soul is the creative side of humankind. The second being is more our animal side and drives us to accomplish or pursue things to satisfy our needs and wants. To satisfy our needs and wants, animal things. Paul spoke of that a little bit. I'll get to that. When we die, the soul separates. The soul, I take it, is our eternal self that goes before the Lord. That's what he calls it. When we die, the soul separates and proceeds to the other side. Forgive me for simplifying everything. The entity of the body dies, taking with it the strong emotions, the baggage, and the drives of human beings. This is a natural part of the dying process. However, sometimes under violent or sudden death, this other being, for lack of better words, doesn't have a chance to die. Instead, it remains behind as the drive, emotions, and motivation of our spirit. This body being, without the guidance of the soul, is basically just a shell. You getting all this? It wanders about with no goals or purpose. It often repeats acts that it has done before because memories are the only guidance that it has. In time, this being's energy dissipates and nothing is left. That process can take a long time. Hence, we have a ghost that haunts a house or a person. A ghost that has the center of its existence when it was with its human body and soul. Here on earth, it remains until it eventually vanishes. The ghost can be communicated with and guided, yet has no real will of its own, but only that of habit. The ghost can be communicated with and guided, but has no real will of its own, but only that of habit. As the questions and answers ended, I felt myself fall. With a jerk, I was back in my own body, my eyes opened, back to my own world. Only scant minutes had passed, but it seemed like an eternity. I learned many other things that as time passed, I forgot. And that's that. And, I don't know if you got all that, but honestly, it does explain hauntings pretty well. And I have more to go on. And I tend to believe this guy. I won't believe this man over the Bible, but I tend to entertain what he's saying. What he's saying. It would explain why ghosts wear clothes, because like he said, they only have memory and habit. Why they haunt a house and do repetitive things? Because that's all they have. Because the soul, when they inhabit, like I am still with you and you're still here, and when we die, the real me, the eternal me, that's the creation of God, goes on to heaven. And what's left behind is this flesh that goes back to the earth, and the energy that he said was of the earth, that he was told when he was in heaven, was an energy that stays with the earth. And it dissipates and just goes back into the earth's energy.
Hello, doggy, and hello, whoever's listening to this. I made that video last night, and there were a couple items I wanted to clarify, and one or two things I wanted to add to it. Sorry, I'll try to get right to the point. I'm out walking the dog. Come on, let's go, pal. Well, we can't go that way. There's people out there working with a chainsaw. All right, the first thing I want to clarify is he refers to the spiritual entity that is with us, that is associated with our body and the earth and our earthly existence while we're in this body. He refers to it as a being, as an entity, but he confused me once. I thought he also referred to it as a soul, but I think you get the point. He is saying that we have two spiritual entities attached to our body, and in that way, each of us is kind of like a trinity in our own smaller way. If you think about it, we have our body. I call the spirit that's associated with our earthly existence that this man talks about. I call that the soul, but he doesn't. He calls it an entity or another being, biological, associated with our biological self. And then there's the spirit, so body, soul, and spirit. But he calls it body, entity, being, and soul. The soul that he refers to is the one that goes on to be with the Lord and God's kingdom and God's will in the hereafter, and it never dies. We never do. The one that's associated with our body, that you can't destroy energy, so it doesn't die. It eventually ceases to exist as a unified form associated with our earthly existence, which would explain a lot why most of the ghosts that haunt, they're quite often, sometimes he said that he was told it could take a long time sometimes for these things to go back, into the Earth's energy. And it's all created by God. So I just want to clarify that what he calls the soul is what I call the spirit. And what he calls an entity, being, or that's associated with our biological self, earthly self, I call that the soul. So I probably just confused everybody even more. Body, soul, and spirit. He would say body, biological entity, and soul. All right, the other thing I want to clarify, I said this would explain why ghosts wear clothes. So that's only part of it. I get to talking on these. I don't script them. I just go with it. I answered why do I think ghosts wear clothes, ghosts that haunt, and why they often wear clothes from the olden days or whatever they wore when they were walking the earth in the flesh. That's because they wear clothes because they're not in hell. They're still of this earth. And clothing and modesty are godly virtues, which is evident in the fact that as soon as Adam and Eve ate of the apple, the tree of knowledge, they became aware that they were naked, and they did not want God to see them naked any more than you'd want to walk around in front of your parents naked as an adult. Hopefully not. So it's a godly virtue. Ghosts wear clothes because they're still in God's kingdom. And he created all this to include heaven and everything. So they're still in God's kingdom. And even though there are ghosts that haunts, there's still energy that he created. And it's not the soul. The soul goes on to heaven or other. And that's who we are. It cannot be destroyed. So I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to, point out the fact, it kind of dawned on me that each of us is a small trinity of body, soul and spirit, as I call it. Or as this guy calls it, body, entity, and soul. Same thing, different words. But not like God. I don't necessarily agree with everything this man has said. I just think that what he says here gives a very good explanation to questions I have long asked about what ghosts are, why are they haunting, and why are they dressed up like from the olden days, And they can only, according to this guy, when we die, our soul goes on to be with the Lord, receive its eternal reward. If we know Jesus, we know where we're headed. And the earthly entity, if it doesn't get destroyed and go back into the Earth's environment, the Earth's energy, like he said, everything has an energy field. Here, I believe that. And God created Earth and everything in it. So it doesn't mean that they're damned if it's some ghost that's lingering around. Oh, this is really flooded. Come on, puppy. Why must you dither? Yeah. But they wear the clothes that they used to know for two reasons. One, it's a godly virtue to be dressed, and they still live within God's kingdom. They're not in hell, not yet. Or these beings never will be. These beings are just energy, a collection of their earthly self. I'm really fumbling on words. But all they have is memories. They don't have a purpose. So they just go around what they remember, their old habits, the clothes they wore, the house they used to live in, the place they used to work maybe, or maybe the place where they were killed or buried. The other thing I wanted to point out that I didn't point out in these videos is that when I encountered my mother, which I take, it was my mother, that visited me, and she was in her heavenly glorified self, and I told that video about 6 or 7 months ago. She didn't really seem like herself as I knew her on earth. That is to say, she was very, very caught up in her life here on earth, and serving God and trying to help people out. And she was very talkative, very full of energy, as gabby as I am, and always engaged with people around her or plans. The mom that I met seemed very beautiful, 30 years old, radiant, dressed in a white robe with a golden glow about her, and a golden belt, and she had a golden aura about her, kind of a faint glow like a candlelight. And she looked very happy, but she wasn't the gabby kind of, I'm not saying she was gabby, but I'm gabby. She was kind of calmer, more focused than I remember her being on earth. And yet I must say that there was portions of that experience that are like a chapter that I'm not allowed to see. There was more to it. I only was allowed to remember the end of it when I returned to earth, and she said to me it has to be this way just for now when we departed. But that also jives with what this man says, is that the personality that she had when she was walking this earth as Pat, my mom, a lot of that was associated just with this life here. And it's gone. Some of it may have lingered around for a while. I do believe it did after she died. But it's back to the earth. It's still God's creation. It's still part of God's kingdom, but that's gone. But her eternal self, no longer fully associated with that self, though that will always be hers experience to share in the hereafter, but her eternal self was a different, kind of a calmer, more focused. I noticed that. it wasn't at all anything bad at all. It was very good. It was very beautiful and fitting of what I believe would be her glorified state, and where she was at, heaven. This is not to say she was. It was a good experience. So I wanted to bring that up as well. And I've gabbed on a lot. It's the way I am, you know. I put these videos out, and something like this, I think about it, and I think about things that I want to clarify or add. And why not? It's free. I mean, it's not free in that it takes time to watch and make this stuff, but all right, I guess that's all. I've probably confused things even more. I hope not. All right, I'll get this done. Get parts 1 and 2 posted, hopefully today, and get the other 3 and 4 posted in a day or two. These things, it gives me something to do. Right now I'm working a lot on my knife throwing video course. I've got it all done, and it's a lot of work putting it all together and marketing it, trying to sell it. Oh, I thought this was important because a lot of my content on this channel has to do with the subject matter of this video, and God and His kingdom and spirit, ourselves, and where do these ghosts fit in that I've encountered throughout my life, and I still am on occasion. I haven't told all my stories, there'd be too many. Let's go, puppy. Come on. Boy, take him off the leash and he becomes a different doggy. Come on, pal. Let's go eat snacks. Yeah, he ain't buying that. All right, take care. God bless.